extremely honored to be here to honor you today, all the many veterans of Rutherford County and beyond. You know, on August 10th, 1941, Winston Churchill and then President Roosevelt met for the first time as wartime leaders of their country aboard the HMS Prince of Wales, which was a ship. And those are two very good speech givers. Wouldn't you say Winston Churchill was a pretty good giver of a speech, right? And you'd think they would grandstand. Roosevelt wasn't too shabby either, but they didn't. You know what they did? They prayed, and they worshiped together. So I'm going to open up my introduction with a prayer today. If you please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for the many souls in this room. From World War II, to Korea, to Vietnam, to the Gulf Wars, and all the battles in between. You were with us then, you are with us now. Be with us today as we honor our veterans, and let us continue to serve you, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So, when I think of veterans, I think of first my grandfather. I look to my grandfather, who was my best friend, Papa J, and one of my mentors, and just my pal for a long time. He was a World War II veteran, and he never would talk about his service. He kept that very close to his chest, if you will, and didn't discuss it very much. And you can imagine why. Many of you here today have probably been through wars and experiences that you don't discuss frequently and you hold close to your heart. I was 11. I was a little, probably high-pitched, southern-sounding little boy, much more than today. I have a recording of an interview that I did with my grandfather when I was 11. And I went to Papa J. I said, I had a school interview for World War II, and I'd like to talk to you about it. My grandmother wasn't very happy with me because she knew he didn't like to talk about it. But he sat me down. I started the recorder, and I began to ask him some questions. It was amazing to me, and I sat in awe of that veteran, my grandfather, that day, as he talked about enlisting at 17 to go fight the war in Europe. Being sent to Monmouth, Germany, then jumping across the channel there to La Havre, France, marching across France into the Battle of the Bulge, fighting that battle on into Germany, about watching German troops surrender, unarmed, they didn't want to be captured by the Russians because they knew what the Russians would do to them. They weren't very nice to each other, the Germans and the Russians. And rightly so. And about guarding prisoners in prison camps after that, and about how scared he was that he was going to have to go to Japan and fight the war in the Pacific as well, because they were already scheduled to go until the dropping of the second atomic bomb. And they were told that the war was over and they were allowed to go home. And you could see the joy on his face when he talked about that moment, about how ecstatic he was about getting to go home after seeing so much violence, killing, and war. But that's the sacrifice that generation, the greatest generation they're called, gave to this country. I don't know that children today realize what kind of sacrifice that was. But it was a pleasure for me at 11 years old, to give that interview to my grandfather. And that began to paint a picture even more than the other movies you watch, right? Things like that. Just the realities of what being a veteran is and what you can sacrifice. And luckily, he didn't sacrifice his life, or I wouldn't be here today. But he was willing to do so and went voluntarily. That takes bravery. That takes commitment to your country. And I think ultimately to your family. And it's just a greater love for a cause. I look to my father, who was in the U.S. Navy, stationed in San Diego, but during Vietnam, and who worked on submarine optics. The Navy paid for my father's education when he got out. It helped make him a man. My parents were married right before he enlisted and went in the Navy. And he talks fondly, always talked fondly about San Diego. So I was given the opportunity. All of us had the opportunity. I enlisted. I was also stationed in San Diego and worked on aircraft electronics. I followed in their footsteps because I saw what their commitment and sacrifice had done for them. The Navy made a man out of probably a smart mouth, know-it-all, snot-nosed little kid. And it gave me even a greater family and sense of purpose. It paid for most of my undergrad education and my graduate school to help me become a lawyer. Hard. I can't put into words all that I received from the military, and I could never pay them back enough. It showed me the world. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East because the Gulf War conflicts were going on during that time. And I just got to see things and experience things that I never would have. So when I look out at all the veterans here today, it's an honor to be before you and to start things off, I guess, in honoring you. And I understand where some of you have been to an extent. And I'm in awe and admiration of it. I look next to the children. We've had some wonderful performances here today by the children singing up here. We have ROTC here today that are going to present and honor veterans. And that's where we next look is to the next generation. What will they do? What legacy do we leave for them? One great thing about honoring veterans today is you're a beacon to the next generation. Those children can see you, see the honors you receive, hear about your sacrifices, and understand what sacrificing for your fellow man and your country really means. I think we need more of that in our country today. Who agrees with me? How great would our country be if all kids did a little military service? It would probably help a lot. So luckily we don't have to do that right now. It's a volunteer only. But these children can look to you as examples, and you're great examples of what an American is. Thank you so much for your service. I appreciate it. I could never repay the military, nor you, for the life that I'm allowed to lead here in the United States and pray the way I wanted to pray to start this thing off, and think and act the way I want to in this free country. And thank you for making this world a freer and better place. Thank you.